Greetings, my friends, and thank you for tuning in to the Hometown Moguls podcast. My name is Ryan Yoder, and here I will be sharing inspiring small business stories from your own community. Please take a second to like, subscribe, follow, share, give a thumbs up. Anything that you can do to help support the podcast would be greatly appreciated. Now, please sit back and enjoy the show. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you jumping on. We'll just dive right into it. If you want to take a couple seconds, couple minutes, whatever you got to introduce yourself. And I know you got a bunch of different things going on at once, so I'd love to hear about what all you're involved in.
Yeah. So, man, first of all, Ryan, thank you so much for having me on your show. I appreciate that. It's an honor. So my name is Bobby Jones. You'll see me go by Mr. Brightside quite a bit. I didn't pick that name picked me. So
Okay.
I can't take credit or blame for it. All right. You guys just deal with it.
I like it.
But obviously the name Mr. Brightside goes along with the company that we own here, Brightside Exteriors in Dover, Delaware. Grew that business up from, nothing, like really just bootstrapped it up to a 7-figure business. And then grew it to a point where we were recognized by Delaware Business Times as one of the fastest 50 growing businesses in Delaware, which was quite an honor. But started out super poor, in and out of foster care as a kid, got into trouble as soon as I possibly could, and was a little bit of a hellraiser. And eventually I got put into a position where I was looking at just a crap ton of time. And, quite honestly, I deserved it. I was a knucklehead. I hurt people. I did just wrong things, man. And I was blessed by a miracle in court that sent me home. And since that time, man, I've been operating with the mindset of gratitude. I got rid of my victim mentality and just been operating with this complete gratitude over life. And it has catapulted me from getting my first job, because I had 3 felony convictions. I got my first job by borrowing a suit and just showing up to places that I thought might hire me and saying that I was there for my interview. So I would just pop in and be like, listen, my name is Bobby Jones. I'm here for my interview. And they'd be like, we don't have you scheduled for an interview. And I'd be like, oh, well, I apologize. I scheduled my interview for 11 o'clock. I'll just sit here and I'll wait. So I got my first job. And, I kept going the extra mile with stuff like that. Kind of an example. I just kept doing stuff like that to stand out, to get promoted, to get better jobs, this and that. And eventually started the business that you guys see today. So that's a little bit of my story. I could talk about it for hours because there's so much to it, but that's the brief little real quick version of how it's all played out for me so far.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate you, being so candid and open. I caught some of your things you've been posting, like story time, and you're talking about being at a bail bondsman, and I was like, all right, so this goes a little deeper. It seems like a lot more interesting of a story than just the top layer of, I definitely got the vibe. You're like a local Gary V, is like high energy, super positive. So I was excited to talk to you.
That's quite the compliment, man. I appreciate that. And I always talk about those stories. And I think, man, if the Gallaghers on the show, Shameless, like if it was a real life thing, man, it was pretty close to what I experienced as a kid. So it was pretty cool. But I don't have a whole lot of regrets. Like that stuff like really built a lot inside me today. The one regret, and I always talk about this, is like, I did hurt people along the way, and I wish that I could take that part back, So my thing today is like I try to do as much good as I possibly can for a lot of the reason is because of what I did in my past. So I got to right those wrongs.
Sure. I mean, so it sounds like you were put mainly in a position of you had no other choice. I mean, to really build on where you were at and take it. I mean, was there a certain person in your life, or I know you mentioned the court and something that happened, but was there something that really struck you that did the 180 in your head of like, all right, I need to turn this around and really push forward? Like what was that pivot point of taking that turn to just start bettering yourself?
Yeah, Ryan, I love that question because that moment in court where that miracle came really was the triggering moment. But the moment that really was groundbreaking for me was actually later on, right? I told you how I got my first job, right? And when I got my first job, I was like, wait, and to me, everything that I knew about myself was broken in that moment. I was like, wait, like they told me I couldn't do this because I had 3 felonies and I couldn't get a job like this, for this reason. And I'm like, so if that's not true, what else do I know to be true, but that actually isn't true at all, right? And so I kept challenging what I thought was holding me back, what I was limited to. And so every like accomplishment or achievement that I made, and every step that I made, I was like, wait, if this is true and I can accomplish this, does that mean that that is accomplishable as well? Like I can accomplish that too. And then I'd go after that. And so every moment I was like breaking through these ceilings that I placed on myself. And I was like, holy fuck, like everything. Wait, is it okay to curse on your podcast?
Yeah, that's absolutely.
Okay.
That's
I was like, holy fuck, like, you know, does if this is true now, then that could possibly be untrue, that's holding me back. Like this that I believe about myself that's holding me back might not be true at all, and maybe I can bust through that ceiling too. And for me, that was truly the groundbreaking moment, because I went through school hearing everything that everybody else heard, right? Like you can be anything you want to be. You work hard enough, you can do whatever you want to do. I thought they were talking to everybody else. I didn't know they were talking to me too. I had no clue that they were including me in that. I was like, you guys, man, you guys got something ahead of y'all, man. You better listen up. Like, you know what I mean? So for me, I excluded myself because of my upbringing and like where I come from. I just thought that they were talking to everybody else and not me. So that to me, when I realized that I was worth it too, like I can do it too, like I'm included in that conversation, that's where everything really changed for me. So I went from a mindset of like this victim mentality to this just mindset of ownership and extreme ownership.
So how's your idea, or what your goal, I imagine, has developed from when you got that first job, what your idea of success was to like where you're at now? I mean, like, where do you see it going in the future, or where do you see yourself getting to a point where like, I've made it, like I'm happy with the success that I've gotten to? I mean, I imagine it's had to adapt along with the speed of your growth and development in business.
Yeah. So that's a great question too. You know, so I want to be very clear. I'm very happy with what I've already accomplished. And I'm very happy with, you know, the changes that I've made in my life, to the point where like, I know that I'm living for the funeral now, right? Like I can't take this stuff with me when I die, but I can leave an impression on many others. And if I died today, I'd be quite happy with what I've left. But also, like I plan to help so many more people. So my definition of success has changed quite a bit. Like it went from, hey, listen, let me just create some kind of financial stability and that'll be success for me. Then I was like, okay, now that I've created stability, is it possible for me to create some financial freedom? And I've created that to a certain degree. And so now my definition of success is the degree of impact that I can have on others. Period. Okay. Right. And so like for every dollar more that I make, the more of an impact I can have on others. And so that constantly evolves. My goals, quite honestly, is to spread this message as far and as wide as I possibly can, you know, just to cast this net wider and wider, because there are people that are still stuck in those beliefs. And they are people from all walks of life. There are people that went through what I went through. And then there are people that, you know, didn't go through what I went through, but might have had just as traumatic experience in other things, and now are left believing that they can't do certain things, or that they're too old, or they've gone too far in one direction and it's too late for them to turn back. All of that shit's bullshit. And I feel like now that I've realized that, and I've created some freedom to tell this story, it's my responsibility to do so. So that's my ultimate goal, man, is just get this message out there about conquering your self-limiting beliefs and understanding that you owe it to yourself to challenge yourself and constantly step out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, I imagine that's important, especially nowadays, you know, that I feel like people have false idols, or they focus on the wrong things, like that big bank account or things like that. And like you've experienced, that's completely overlooking certain portions of the population that don't have that support system, or like the positive role models. I mean, what platforms, if you don't mind sharing, like, are there any things specifically you're doing, like say talking to schools or going to places where these kids are troubled youth, and you're kind of sharing your story and showing what's possible? I mean, like, where are you actually going out and sharing the story to people that need to hear it?
Yeah, so it's actually interesting. You know, the year that I really created the most freedom to do this more and more was 2020, when everything really locked down, you know? So, but with that being said, I traveled more in 2020 than I ever have in my entire life. I spoke to more people in 2020 than I have in my entire life. And I think that just goes to show that, like, if you want excuses, they're there. But if you want a reason to do it, if you really believe in your purpose, you'll find reasons to do it and not excuses. So my platforms really have been, I've spoken to a lot of detention centers. I work with the Stevenson House in Milford, Delaware. I work with Ferris School for Boys in Wilmington, Mold's Cottage. I've worked with the PAL program through the Dover Police program, which was super fun. And I love Officer Smitty put that together, and he's an incredible example to our youth as well. Those have been great ways to do it. But what we've really started to do over the last couple of years, and we started to document that stuff so that we can share it at scale, right? Like I can go to these schools and deliver this message, but I can only go to so many schools and deliver this message, right? So now we're documenting it and sharing it at scale. More people can view the same message, and we're also making it clear, like, look, I did this for a long time before we ever started documenting it. So I'm not looking for like the applause and stuff like that about it, right? Like I'm not looking for the credibility and the notoriety of my charitable efforts. But if I can inspire other people with similar stories to start sharing their stories through sharing and documenting what we are doing, then that's a win. And if more people see it because it's on a video platform or a social media platform and they get to hear the message and get, something from it, then that's a win. So, for me, we're really starting to create more content around it and getting it out there more on social media platforms, YouTube. Clubhouse is a new social media app for those of you who don't or haven't been on it yet or haven't really heard of it yet. It's a wonderful opportunity for you to create meaningful relationships. And again, you go without your hand out, right? Not asking for anything. And oftentimes you're forced to put your hand out because opportunities fall into it. And so, so that part's been great. It's new. It's something that has allowed me to connect with a lot of people. And as a result of being on for like a month and a half, I've been booked to speak on quite a few different podcasts, platforms. I'm speaking at a couple of mastermind retreats, stuff like that. So I'm really just loving the opportunities, and we'll continue to do so. It's part of everything that we're doing now that I've kind of been able to exit Brightside for the most part. I have somebody running Brightside day-to-day operations, and I'm really just doing the marketing and branding for Brightside now. So,
okay, yeah, I mean, so that's one of the things I was going to touch on, of just out of my curiosity of your time. You can't manufacture time. So I mean, it sounds like you have your hands in so many different things, and you have to, I imagine, become a master delegator of finding someone to trust. What's your team look like behind the scenes of all these different operations that you have going on at one time?
Man, I love this question. So, man, it's so funny because, you probably see me post a lot about master networks and us helping like a lot of small businesses. So I am in a position where I'm working with small businesses quite often. And one of the things that I commonly hear is like people are having a hard time either finding people or delegating those things to people and this and that. And one of the things that really helped with us is that every step of the way, I wanted to empower my people. Like, if you're waiting to talk to me to make a decision on something, then am I really leading? Am I letting you become the leader that you should be? And because from the very early stages of Brightside, I empowered, like if they came to me with something, I'd be like, well, let me ask you, what would you do in this situation? And most of the time, what they were going to do was exactly what we should do, right? So they didn't need to come to me and bring me this problem for me to solve. They had already solved it, right? And so there were other times where the question was, okay, this is what I would do. All right, cool. That's a great idea. Here's what I would do. And like we would talk about that. But again, I would give them the tools, the resources, and the authority to make decisions. And as a leader, I had to understand that, yes, there are going to be different decisions that I would have made most of the time. But that's part of this. Like, I have to allow them to handle it their way, right? And so as a result, I developed a lot of leaders in my company, like my cousin Brian, my brother-in-law Nick, my brother Jason, and then Dave, who is our new director of operations over at Brightside. They've all been empowered. Even Alexis, who is our office manager, she knows, like, she has plenty of decision-making power, so that it never creates this place where they're stuck not being able to make a decision or stuck in a position where they're waiting for an answer before they can do their job. I can't understand why so many small business owners put themselves in that position, because at the end of the day, time is our most important commodity, and it's our most important unit of currency as well. So from the very early stages of Brightside, I wanted to get as much time as I could back so that I could do other things with it, to work on my business and not in it. So the only way I was going to be able to do that is if I had people around me that could and were allowed to make decisions that right now I was responsible for making. So along the way, providing them with the resources and the authority, I think that's the key piece that a lot of small business owners don't give up. Let your people make some decisions and you'll be amazed at what they're able to accomplish. But, to answer your question, that's what really created a lot of my time, allowed me to work above the business and on it versus in it, in the trenches all the time.
Got it. I mean, that's a very powerful statement. And like you said, I haven't heard many other local business owners and people, put it that way of, developing leaders instead of employees. And I mean, it sounds like that's almost how you've separated yourself from the pack of, I've said before of, I went the traditional route of, I went to college, because everyone said you need a degree, you need to do this, and sought out that 9-to-5 job with a good benefits package and everything. And yeah, I found myself in a cubicle at a bank, and yeah, it made nice money, but I was so unmotivated to pursue anything further. I kind of clicked one day that I've trained myself, or I've been trained to be an employee, not like an entrepreneur, not like a leader or something, out of that realm. So that's why I've kind of developed this podcast on the side of, a way to challenge myself and take leadership of something. And being in a sales role like I have the last year, I've had to develop my own book of business and, and build my own pipeline. So I'm starting to push myself in that direction. And I'm not jealous, but like I admire people that naturally have that instilled in them like you do. It seems like you needed the right push in the right direction to bring it out.
Yeah. I mean, I was always a little bit of like a hustler, and like, obviously, that environment will create that to some degree. I mean, I've sold everything from baby bottles at a flea market to houses in real estate. So, there was always that hustler mentality, but I'll tell you the commitment to self-development, and it sounds like that's what you're doing too, Ryan, is like your commitment to personal development and constantly improving yourself is the key, right? Like I've read books before creating my business that if I didn't read those books, I know I would have done it wrong. Like it set me up for success. Now I put my own spin and twist on it along the way, but listen, too many people before us have done this. So for us to be naive to the fact that we can, avoid a few bumps and bruises by reading and learning from those people, then, like you need to do so. You need to have a commitment to personal development. And so, a certain degree of what I'm doing today came naturally, but honestly, if a lot of the leadership skills, a lot of the, referring to my team members as team members and not employees, that came from books. Like I didn't know to change those little words, and it can make people feel, more of a involved part of the business versus just some kind of cog in the machine. So, for me, all those things were extremely important, and the self-development part was key to emerging the way that Brightside has, for sure.
So if you can, hit me with top 3 books, top 5 books, something that is a must for anyone trying to pursue a similar path.
Yeah, it's hard not to recommend Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, as the number one. So I'll go with that one. But one of the books that I really loved that helped me was Xtra Leadership by Dave Ramsey. Damn, you're only going to give me 3. This is tough. All right.
Dude, so rattle off as many as you want.
Yeah. I'll make it quick though, because I hate it when people just get in like this repetitive list thing. But yeah, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, definitely. Dave Ramsey's Xtra Leadership is really good for leadership and structuring a business and knowing when to launch from your job into a business, or what point that business is actually, going to provide for you. It's great. Now, there are certain money principles when it comes to business that I don't technically necessarily agree with Dave Ramsey, but most of it is 100% applicable. And I would advise most people that are starting a business to use those. The other is The Go Giver, which is a great book that talks about operating from the mindset of contribution, right? Going to serve and to help, and with every relationship that you meet, like, what can I do to help this person, right? And so you don't, like I said earlier, you don't have your hand out, but what ends up happening as a result is eventually, for some reason or another, you end up having to put your hand out because opportunity will fall into it. The one law in there that I really love to talk about is the law of receptivity, which means that, you can be somebody who loves to help other people, but are you also the person that when you're offered help, you're willing to take it? Right? A lot of people think that that's a weakness. Oh, I'm not going to ask for help, or I'm not going to accept help because I'm strong enough and tough enough to be able to handle this on my own. No, it's a strength, my friend. It's a strength because those people that are offering the help, we have to keep that cycle of energy going, right? So if they stop offering help because too many people have said, no, I'm good. I don't need the help. Well, are we really playing into the future, of our world? And so that's something I've struggled with, but it was a groundbreaking moment for me. The other couple of books, I'm going to real quick, Extreme Ownership, Jocko Willink, Navy SEAL, wrote an incredible book about just leadership and ownership over everything that, is under you or involved with you. It's a great, great book. Gosh, I could go on and on. There's the 7 Levels of Communication, which is a great book for networking and building relationships. It a lot of tactical advice on how to strategically leverage relationships and create relationships. So I can go on and on this, Ryan, but those are just a few that definitely shouldn't be ignored.
I actually just started Jocko's book, so it's good to know it's on your list because that's one I just cracked open. I got that, and Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss. It's a nice little. He takes waters down all of his interviews and kind of puts little snippets together in different categories. So been picking my way through those too.
4-hour work week was phenomenal. And like, there's so much. I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, a 4-hour work week is incredibly impractical. Okay, cool. So take what from the book was extremely practical for you in your industry or for your business or for your own desire. Like, dude, 4-hour work week is based on his self-awareness of what he wanted from himself. Like, you might want to work 10 hours a week, fine. But understand that there's a lot of things that are in that book that can help you get to that 10-hour work week. So do it.
Absolutely.
Anyway, all right, my bad, man.
No, I love it. I want to know what I can use as resources for myself, and so I appreciate you sharing some insight on that. Yeah. Just out of curiosity of, with the time factor and all the different things you do, I mean, how do you balance that out? I don't see you posting a whole lot about your hobbies, or what do you do in your downtime, or how do you balance out the stress level with, just being a normal person? Do you give yourself that time, or are these pursuits, do you consider these your hobbies? Like, do you get that much enjoyment out of it? Like, what's that balance look like?
So yes, I do get that much enjoyment out of it. There is nothing to me that's better than building a business or building relationships for that matter. I can tell you over and over again how one relationship has changed my life in so many dramatic ways that it's incredible. So learning people's stories, man, I love that. If I meet a new person, I want to know their story. Like, they could be the most like plain Jane looking person, like, don't judge a book by its cover. I've met some of the quietest, like, just, simple people that when they open up and tell you your story, you're like, oh my God, no way. Like, and for me, I can't wait to uncover that part for every single person that I meet. Like, I want to know that. What is that with you? And how, how can I feed off of it? How can I hear it? What question do I need to ask you? I love all that part of it. But for me, the outside of work and building these businesses and doing what I'm doing, I'm a little bit of an artist. So every now and then, I get my joy from, creating something in that space. My girls are great. I'm married. I have 2 girls, and, we spend plenty of family time together. There's never enough time, but I think that people need to understand that, like, if we had it our way, we'd spend all of our time with our kids and our family probably. And that's just not practical. Sure. Right. But they can't also spend all their time with you either. They got to go to school. So like, you do the right thing and make sure that you balance the time. My daughters and I, we play, and I don't know why, this is like the only video game I play at all period anymore, especially over the last couple of years, but we play Black Ops 3 Zombies, and we love it. Just me and my 2 daughters, and we will just sit there and play for hours. We'll play Black Ops 3. And I don't know why it's only that version of Call of Duty, but whatever. Like, we only play that game, and it's been cool, just being able to wind down that way.
Okay. Very cool. I mean, it's similar. I got 2 boys, 4 and 7, and their game is Fortnite. I'm not very good at it, but I'll sit there and try to play with them here and there, and usually get my butt kicked. But
my youngest is the gamer. She's got a PS4 in her room now with headphones. I walk in there and I'm like laughing because she's just like this full-on gamer now. But I embrace it because, like, dude, I mean, there's people with that guy that won that Fortnite competition, won like $3 million or something like that. So gone is the day, like, parents can't yell at their kids about playing on video games anymore because you never know what they're going to get to.
Sure.
but it's interesting. So my daughters are 16 and 11. My oldest is 16, my youngest is 11, and she's more of like Minecraft, Roblox, that kind of stuff. But she's definitely a gamer, so it's
Cool,
fun.
man. So, obviously you got a platform built above your own, and, you reach more people than I currently reach, but what can I plug, or what can I put out there as far as ways that people can find more information about you and get in contact with you? Cause I definitely want to do a follow-up. I don't want to hold up too much of your time, but
I'm
I feel
free,
like,
man. If you want to keep chatting, we can chat it up for a little while. And honestly, it's not a problem. But
all
if
right.
you're talking about my IG, I always send everybody to my Instagram. Anything that I'm doing, anything else that I'm launching, I'm going to be sure to announce there. It does stream to my website as well. So in my Instagram is Mr. Brightside, but it's all separated by underscores. So it's underscore Mr. underscore Bright underscore side underscore. Okay. And then my website is Bobby Jones dash MrBrightside.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. And you put up something, so you're involved in, so you have the Mr. Brightside, but you also have, is it Brightside Properties? You do something with flipping houses and stuff. How long have you been doing that as a business venture?
Yeah. So one of the ways that I was able to get time back from my business over the years through Brightside was by creating other revenue streams. And so it was 2017, I bought my first real estate investment and I rented it for a few years. So, in order for me to justify stepping back and stepping further back in Brightside, I needed to be creating other streams of income, because one of the things that I've done to keep Brightside Exteriors really healthy is I've been taking less and less money as a salary from Brightside since the beginning, right? And most people are like, why is he sharing this with us? Well, first of all, I don't care about like what people think about how much or way I structured it. This might not work for everybody, but this is the way it worked for me. So from the beginning, right, I probably made more money with Brightside the first year than I did since. Now that's me as an individual, right? So every single year I was taking less and less money because I wanted to continue to be able to hire. I wanted to continue to be able to invest in the business. As we grew, it was going to require more and more investments. So if I could take less, the more and healthier this business is going to be. The only way that would work is if I was creating other revenue streams to offset my personal expenses. So bought my first investment property in 2017. I also bought into another business called Master Networks in 2017, which we'll get into in a second. But then I ended up buying a few more real estate investments because the reason I did that too, I want to emphasize this because this isn't for everybody. And the real model should be look at your current efforts, your current business, right? And then pair anything that you're trying to add, you want to try to pair in with current efforts. Like, what are you already doing that complements this, right? And so, like, I wouldn't have started a restaurant because the only similarity and commonality there would have been the fact that I ate at restaurants, but I didn't have anything going on that would have complemented the restaurant industry. So, because I had a roofing business, real estate investments made sense. I could rehab the properties at a lower cost than most people. And it was already something we were doing. If I bought a house that needed roof siding, windows, doors, decks, patios, whatever, I could just simply add it, right? I could create a customer with my new company and bring this through my existing business so that, it was complementary to our current efforts. I recommend that with anything that you're doing, so if you're, a landscaper and you're saying, okay, I'm going to add, or I'm going to explore, maybe you want to provide mulch and gravel to people and you have the space to do so. That's complementary. Now you can become a supply center on top of your services, and that's complementary. You're going to probably get a better price on your stuff that you're using. And as a result, you're going to be able to service more people. That's a complementary business. Now, if that person then wanted to start an interior painting business or an automotive mechanic, right? That just wouldn't make as much sense. And so pairing those and batching those efforts are really important when you're trying to add external revenue streams. That really helped out. The real estate property group flipping has really helped out. My wife became a realtor a couple of years ago, so she's been able to help us list the properties. And it's just, again, it's been so complementary that there's a synergy there versus any kind of a conflict, or one's not holding one back or nothing like that, which can sometimes happen with small business owners. They try to bite off more than they can chew.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that makes absolute sense. And it almost seems like a common sense thing, but until you put it out on paper like that and you explain it, like I never would have thought of it that way, as each one's complementary to the other. They're kind of building off of each other, they're feeding each other. So I mean, that's actually pretty genius, but in the simplest way,
Yeah,
that someone could.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say I could see where someone could completely overlook that, of, like you said, just being someone that's high energy, just super motivated. Like now I want to do this. I want to do like I want to open mechanics, and like they just overlook the simplicity of like lining them all up to work in unison.
Right. Because we only have so much of a bandwidth, right? Like, I mean, that's the kind of the question that we're going back to, is how did I get my time back? Well, it was understanding how important my time was that made me realize how much I owed that to myself. And so that's how Master Networks came to be as well, because I'll tell you, I was actually at lunch with the guy that owned Master Networks in this region. We were talking about real estate, and I knew he owned Master Networks now that I think back on it. But during that meeting, I think I hadn't really considered it. It was out of my mind because that wasn't the topic at hand. Anyway, so during the lunch meeting, he's like, "You should buy Master Networks from me." And immediately I said no. I was like, "Nah, I got too much on my plate, man. I can't do that right now." And then later on, I got to thinking about it, because I had been a member for Master Networks for probably about a year and a half. But in addition to that, what I did was I put each of my salespeople in Master Networks as well. So this is before I was even a partner. I recognized the benefit of Master Networks and said, okay, I'm going to put one of my team members in each one of these chapters as well, for a couple of reasons. One, obviously we can scale this relationship building thing that way. Two heads is better than one, three heads is better than two. And so we had that happening. The other thing that was happening as a result of Master Networks' really good training model, my guys who I didn't have the time or the resources to really train in the personal development space, they picked up the slack. So my team members that I put into these chapter meetings were now getting the training each week that were making them better individuals as well as better team members. So it was quite a bit of benefits. But I started to think to myself afterwards, I was like, wait, I'm already more involved in Master Networks than this guy is. And he just tried to sell it to me. Like, it's not something that I'm going to have to do more of something else, because I'm already doing more than he is, and he owns it now. So I was like he never even went to the meetings. So I was like, all right, you know what? Let's find out how much this costs. And it was surprisingly affordable, and we were able to make the deal happen. And as a result, now I'm also in control of growing something that was growing Brightside anyway. So it made, like you just said, it made so much sense after careful consideration that it would have been a negative impact not to do it. Really. So, I was able to become a regional partner of Master Networks, which is actually a national company that is headquartered out of Dallas, Texas, or actually Plano, Texas. But now I have this platform where not only am I helping my other business grow through it, but I'm also helping so many other small business owners grow their business too, which is right up my freaking alley. Like, this is what I love doing. So it was such a compliment to what we were already doing. And those are just a couple examples. And I didn't really mean to go too deep into that, but those are things that I think without that, I wouldn't have been able to do what I did. And if I had done it much differently, or even a little differently at any point, it could have slowed things down quite a bit for me.
Sure. No, I mean, I appreciate you being candid. Like I said earlier, just opening up, because, that's one of the reasons that springboarded this whole thing is, as I'm out meeting local business owners, my idea of success was always like way out of the reach. Like, I just assumed it was something I was just going to set to be employee forever. Like, I was never going to achieve much like to that level. And then I started meeting these local business owners, and my idea of success changed to like, wow, like, okay, how many businesses do you own? Or like, so you own properties on top of this. How did you get started? And so my curiosity just naturally, I was like, oh, there has to be other people that are interested in this, to share that.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to start to put some courses together too, Ryan. So, let's stay connected, because I want that to be available to your audience as well. But we're going to start to put together courses on this, because, man, even the real estate investment stuff that I did, was way easier than I ever imagined it would have been. I bought a real estate investment before I ever bought a house for myself. And so like people don't understand that that's even that can even be done in that order, right?
Sure.
We feel like we have to run this normal track of life. Like, we have to do exactly what everybody says we should do, but no, man. And not only that, it's so much easier to get into real estate investments than you think. The trick itself is to find the deal. The rest will actually work itself out most of the time. So anyway, we can chat on that we could do a podcast episode number 2 on this and dive deep into that real estate investment thing, man. That's for sure.
No, yeah,
I'm good, man. We can chat for a little bit.
All right. Yeah. Cause, that's actually, I don't necessarily have a pinpoint idea. And that's what I'm trying to develop out of this too for myself is I know that I want to develop something of my own. I want to bring something to fruition and set it up that I can start building off of that. And one of the ideas being, I told my wife, like in the next couple of years, I want to have at least one type of rental property or something, break into that and, real estate investment world. So that's exciting to hear that, to you, it was easier than you initially thought. So really definitely
it was more about it was more about relationships than anything else, man. I'm telling you. And like, I push this so much with people that, it probably is a broken record to people, but I'm telling you right now, man, the relationships that I've made in the because I'm born and raised in Dover. I was born at Kent General Hospital, right? Been here my entire life. And most of the people that I know today, I've met in the last 5 or 6 years. Most of the people that I know today, I've met in the last 5 or 6 years. It was because during that time, I realized how important it was to have a large network and to have people advocating for you, not just as a business, but as an individual. And in that time, I also realized like those relationships are what opened the door for my real estate investments. So that's a huge piece. But I want to go back to what you were talking about is like people that are, if you're in a 9-to-5 job right now and you want to become an entrepreneur, there's a lot of things that you have to understand about that are simple, and there are some things that are difficult. But one, I want to say that like you can make those leaps. I always talk about how like in the beginning for me, I was very unlucky and that made me lucky, right? So, and I'll explain. Like when I started my business, I was at rock bottom. I had nowhere down to go. So the only thing that could happen was I could go up, right? So for a person that's leaving like a corporate job to start a business or a 9-to-5, they have a lot more to lose and to risk. It's a riskier move than it was for me. And I know that sounds crazy because it's like, wait, starting from the bottom had its advantages. Yeah, it definitely did because I had nothing to lose. But with that being said, there's a lot to starting a business that I think, people try to overanalyze, right? Like they get into this analysis paralysis and they're like, oh, I need this and they need funding. And when I started Brightside, we had blank invoices from Staples. We had no logo made, no cards, no business, nothing. We had no business cards. We had nothing. And I went out and started knocking on doors and I started selling roofing because I knew that the sales were going to create everything else that I needed, right? And I think people get caught up too much in trying to make sure all the stars are aligned, when in reality is if you go out and sell, like even, dude, there are businesses that are billion-dollar businesses today that started with somebody going out to sell something they didn't even have made yet. Like if you sell it, then you have a real reason to make it or to provide that service, right? But sure. Before you sell it, do you really have as much a reason to provide it and produce it? So, I think that a lot of people get caught up in this analysis paralysis of trying to make sure that their website's up and perfect and that their logo's perfect and that they have t-shirts. Well, guess what? None of that's going to sell your product. Go out and sell it. Go out and sell your product. And if you haven't learned sales yet, start with that. Start with learning sales.
Sure. Yeah, that's something that I wish I would have learned. I feel like it almost has a stigma attached to it, the entire pursuit of selling a product or selling a business or a service or something. It's almost looked at in a negative way. And then when I started doing it, it takes an internalization of it to realize, no, I'm helping. Like you may not turn no's into yeses, but it's the people that actually need the service, and you just start building on that pipeline. You're not viewing yourself as interrupting their day as much or whatever. Like, it's you have to view it separately from what you're doing to actually be a service. Like, no, I'm trying to help. I'm trying to do that. But like the whole idea, like you just said, of, just start somewhere and then legitimize it as you go.
Yeah.
Really rings true to, at least even just on the smaller scale of this podcast, the same way of like,
Just do it. Yeah. You're doing the right thing, man.
you put it up yourself, like the original Brightside logo. You said you made it in paint and Word, and
Yes.
like that's everything that I've made. It's just stock images I found online, and I did it in paint. And this, like working off of an iPhone with a headphone set like this. I mean, like just trying to get done with the basics, So
And dude, there's nothing wrong with it. In fact, man, that's the big thing is you're more brave than even I was, like when I started my podcast, because I did get caught up in because this is new. When I first started my podcast, we were in my conference room, but even then I was like, I got to have the right boom mics, this and that. Like, no, you don't. Like, grab your phone and start recording, and you're doing it right. And going back to what you're talking about with like the logo and stuff like that, like I am really grateful for our Brightside logo that eventually did get created and made, but the logo wasn't going to sell anything. Like, the logo was not going to sell it. The other thing was, I love what you said about when you're selling, you got to remember that you're truly helping people, right? And the key to that is, well, you got to be the best, right? So like if you're starting a business and you don't plan on being the best in your industry, then I don't know what you're trying to accomplish, right? Like, what do you mean you don't want to be the best in your industry? Like, if you don't have that mindset, then you need to switch it to that mindset right away. And here's why. When I first got into sales years ago, one of the books that I read said, if you're not working for the company that offers the very best product or service, then quit right now and go work for the company that does. Now, I don't know about you, that helps me sell. But when I was developing the company, like I never wanted to put my people in that position. I didn't want them to leave me and go work for a company that offered a better product or service. So since the very beginning of Brightside, we've offered what we truly believe to be the very best product or service that can be offered. We only use one brand. We only use that system and the system that they offer. And we use the best installers. Now, in order to do those things, you're not going to be able to play the price game. You're not going to be the cheapest. So own that. Know that. The easiest thing for people to match is price. They can't match your value, so why are you matching their price? If you are the best, then own your price. If you are the most expensive in your industry, own that and be proud of that. I'll tell you, sometimes, I mean, we get customers that come to us and they're like, well, listen, so-and-so roofing is, gosh, I hope there's not a so-and-so roofing out there that I'm not like whatever, a competitor's company is, a couple $1,000s less than you. I was like, and when my guy Dave is the one that brought this to us, which is really great, but he'd be like, oh, wow, they're really expensive then. And it like throws them off. They're like, wait, what do you mean? They're really expensive. You're $2,000 more than them. I was like, yeah, but for what they're offering, we'd be at, 8,000 instead of the 12 that they're at. And then they're like, wait. And so then they look back at their proposal and then they're like, oh, I see now. You know what I mean? Like, I was unapologetically more expensive than that other person because we're bringing so much more. We have to be, you know what I mean? So own that. That would be my one piece of advice, on that note for anybody listening that's thinking about starting a company. Don't sell yourself short just because you're trying to play the price game.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's what we've been, at least in my role with our company, that's what we've been taught from day one is like, you're never going to be the lowest. Don't try to be. Then that's exactly a reason, is because there's that value there that no one else will be able to match and touch, so it's, trying to build yourself up to that point of like, and I think it comes with experience. It comes with,
definitely.
It comes with, actually making some sales and having commission come in, because you have to be comfortable enough financially to walk away from something that I could kind of tweak it and make it work, but like trying to fudge it, like make it hit the ground and close it. But that I think that's a very powerful message. And especially when it comes to local business world of, I've been involved in different, the Central Delaware Chamber, the Cecil County Chamber and stuff. And so I think it's important for local businesses to hear, like, there's going to be national companies. There's going to be other people out there that you're going to be nowhere near their dollar value. But like you said, that's a good thing. Like, be proud of that fact.
Absolutely, man. I use this saying all the time. And again, once you do it more and more, it's more comfortable saying, but I'd rather apologize for the price one time than for poor quality a lifetime.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, that's the thing. Like, if I see you in the grocery store and you bought a roof from me, I won't be apologizing about anything then. I'd rather apologize to you at the table when we're signing the contract about the price one time, than to have to apologize for a cheap product being on your home. Now, again, I don't apologize often anyway, because it is something that you should be proud of. And if you're offering the best, which I strongly encourage you to do, charge for it. You should be. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, this gives us a ton of information. I don't want to get too much of what you've laid out, some golden nuggets of information. I don't want it to get lost in the weeds of,
yes,
someone sees a 45-50 minute, podcast, and they're going to like fast forward through it. I want to be able to, bullet point some of these and maybe come back if I can get you on the podcast again. We'll do a part 2. This has been awesome. So I really appreciate it. Any last things you want to plug? Anything you want to throw out there? We can get out here on the airwaves.
No, the one saying that I really love, and I'll leave them with this, is like, the better you get as an individual, right, the more you realize how much better you can get as an individual. So keep improving, because that's where, not just success, but, extreme self-awareness, what you really want, is going to be found. That's my biggest advice, man, is just continue to improve, because the more you improve, the more self-development you commit to, the more coaches, mastermind programs you get involved with, the more you're going to learn about yourself, the more you're going to learn about what really makes you happy, and the more doors are going to open for you as a result. So that would be my strong advice to end this with, man.
Well, again, appreciate your time. You are a very impressive individual, and I definitely want to pick your brain again later on.
I appreciate that, man. It could all be gone tomorrow, so I don't try to get too cocky about it, for sure, man. But I've learned a lot along the way, that's for sure. Appreciate you, man.
My man.